you actually like helped me segue really easily into like what I want to talk to you next about, because like I have artistic ability. I went to school. I have a minor in studio art, but what I don't have is I guess there's just like I'm missing something that like brings up the subject matter that I really want to keep creating around. And I guess like I've definitely talked about this on the podcast before, and like I have a bunch of your art on my walls. Like it's and it's all different, and that's like very like evident in the pieces that I've acquired over time with you, that like there's been like an evolution of the style. But like what is it, like what is the subject matter that like excites you, and like what is it that fuels the desire to put so much like concentration, effort, time, and creativity into a single piece, then find the drive to do it all over again? Like, where do you find that kind of inspiration in the world?
I mean, it's like a bit of just like an instinct. Like I don't even know if instinct is the right word. I just feel like a compulsion to do it. Sort of. I don't know. Like a lot of people, the creative outlet is exactly that. It's an outlet. For it could help with mental health issues or whatever. There's a million things. So like sometimes it's to like exercise some demons, but I made a point when I was younger to like not rely on misery to make good art, because that's a really dangerous trap that a lot of artists fall into. And like, yes, a lot of the best art that I've ever made was when I was depressed, or when I wasn't in a generally good spot. But I knew that if that was the only way I was ever going to be able to be creative or to make good stuff, I would be burnt out and dead by 40. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to do this stuff for a while still, so I had to like train myself to be able to also make good work when I'm happy, so, and I feel like I've kind of gotten there in some ways, but yeah, I don't know. It tends to be a little bit more dialed in and not as like gesturally, like the actual artwork itself, a little bit tighter when I'm not as angry or depressed or whatever it is. But even that I'm trying to train myself out of, like to be able to get like aggressive with a painting and slap some paint around and get tactile with it, but not because I'm mad. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's because I'm having a good day,
Right. Yeah. Intentionally making a mess.
Yeah.
Like I guess like a concentrated mess or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know exactly what I'm saying, but what about the
Well,
subject matter portion?
What's that?
What about like the subject matter portion of it? Like, what about the things, like, are there just things that you naturally gravitate to that you just like to create and recreate?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's definitely themes like throughout a lot of my stuff. I love drawing plants and flowers and stuff like that. So you'll notice most of the posters and like album covers and stuff like that I've done in my life include some sort of flora in them. But I also really love like kind of sea creatures and stuff like that. Obviously, like I have jellyfish tattooed on me, and that's in my logo that I use. So like sea creatures also. But as far as like what sort of themes I go after, it's definitely things more on like the ethereal side, like things that are like, I guess you can call it surreal, but not exactly like Salvador Dali, Yeah, I don't know. A lot of it I like to make in a way that's vague enough that sometimes I don't even know what I mean by it. And it'll be like years later that I see a piece and I'm like, oh God, that's what was going on in your head at the time, Or I've had people like point it out to me, like tell me what a piece means to them. And I'm like, oh my God, you're absolutely right. I didn't even know that though.
Right.
And that's pretty interesting. So like there's that sort of like ethereal vagueness that I like to play with. That's where I find, most of the most interesting stuff that I do, for sure.
and like I said, you've done a lot of different styles, and I've seen you just engage in art in so many different ways. Like we met doing music, so obviously, you know, music,
Hmm.
and then uh before I even realized that you had like a truly like hands-on artistic like artistic ability, you were always into you know, like video and photography. So like
Yeah.
you always had that visual eye, and then you know and how that translates to like, you know, digital and editing and whatnot. And then you really started leaning into like this art side of you a little bit later on than when like probably, I don't know, I mean, it was significantly later after I met you that you
Yeah.
really started leaning into all this. But like
For
I've
sure.
seen
Yeah.
you paint, and then I've seen you do things like, you know, like fine tip, you know, ink pen and whatnot. Like,
Hmm.
what is there any particular style that like you enjoy the most, or is it just like you just kind of it's kind of like traveling, like you want to visit something and then maybe revisit it later?
Yeah, a little bit of that for sure. But like the way that I progressed through some of those creative mediums, like with music, for instance, I hit a point with music where I realized that like I wasn't nearly as good as a lot of the other people that I was with. You know what I mean? The people that I was playing with or hanging out with, and other bands that we were playing with. So it's sort of, there was a moment where like I realized I could either drop music entirely and just devote myself wholly to visual mediums because I was already pretty good at that, or I could just kind of like dabble and be mediocre at both. So I sort of decided to just cut out playing music entirely. Still staying involved in music, obviously through you know live music and concert promotion and whatnot. But then, like you said, I got into photography and video and stuff. And all the while, though, I was a painter, and I grew up in like the AP art classes and that sort of thing. So I was always into just more like traditional hands-on medium. But the photography thing when I was in school and a little bit after, but I feel like photo got to a really weird place where, you know, I wasn't competing with professionals anymore. I was competing with amateurs, and that was maddening, you know.
Right.
Um, and that's only gotten worse. So like I still enjoy photo, but in a way more distant sort of way now. And so, like you said, it was probably like mid to late 20s that I really dove back into doing more, you know, visual media like that. Got away from photography, started doing concert posters, and you know, the 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 scene that I was starting to become involved in with like the jammier side of things, there was like this history of amazing poster art. So once I sort of found that, it was full speed ahead. Like I want to do a lot of that,
Yeah.
but a lot of that is a lot of digital work though. So, you know, I need to get my hands dirty sometimes. So I still, you know, I still paint, and even the skateboards. Some of the skateboards for the show are hand shaped, or you know, it's all, you know, something that I made top to bottom. Some of them are just I bought blanks and put artwork on them. But so yeah, I don't know. There has to be the balance. Like I love digital technology and all that I can do with it, but I have to paint, or else I just, you know, I'm gonna go crazy eventually, and I'll burn out on doing the digital work. So it sort of like helps me stay even keeled. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that really answered your question. I think so,
No,
but
it does. And I can actually identify with how you were saying, like, you know, if you keep doing too much of the digital, you'll just burn out without doing a little bit of the physical. Because
Mhm.
I I'm not the type of person that like experiences like I don't know if it was a depression, but it was definitely like a funk. It was definitely a it was, I just felt stuck. I was like just 0% creative, and I couldn't really like work my way out of it. And it was last February. And I I've
That was a hard
I've
time.
never I've never painted before. I used to draw a lot, but like I never actually tried painting. And I was like, screw it. my sister a couple years back had bought me a couple canvases that I was going to use for something else, but I'd never used them. And I was like, yeah, screw it. I'm going to paint. And I remember just really enjoying it. I remember being like putting on a bunch of podcasts, putting on a bunch of music, and just really enjoying it. And then I felt as I was getting to like the end of it, because I bit off way more than I could chew. I should have done just one panel, and then I did like a 4-panel single piece, and I was like, what am I doing?
I've head first into the deep end, man. I love it.
Yeah. So, but it really, like, I still was able to do it. I still was able to get it done. And by the end of it, though, I felt really good, or at least a lot better than I was feeling. And I felt, you know, I knew that I wanted to get back to doing things like this, doing the podcast and things. But I had no drive for it. I didn't really feel like having conversations. And if I had a conversation before, so I probably wouldn't be that interested, or I wouldn't have anything to say. And yeah, it was just something about me dabbling in something that I literally don't do often at all and used to enjoy way back when, that kind of like recharge that battery. It was like a small vacation of everything that I think is normal. And it got me back into feeling creative again. So I totally understand.
There's something so zen about just pushing paint around on a surface. It's insane. And I don't know what exactly about that is so satisfying, but like, even if you're not making, you know, a beautiful painting that you think is going to be hung in the Louvre someday, like just pushing paint around on a canvas or even on a wall. Painting walls can be like that, like to just sort of check out of your head and do this thing. And I think it's something like with I don't know, like the same sort of thing that makes like shoveling snow satisfying, to see a job completed. You know, so like, I don't know, there's something about it that just I think is good for you, you know, even if it's not a masterpiece, whatever. But in general, just to like, I don't know, throw something new into like the creative process. Even like sometimes when I get stuck, I even will just like buy a new kind of brush that I've never used before, or download a new like typeface to use on my posters, and all of a sudden that can just like fire off so many things, you know.